live. Aha. Hello, folks, and we're live. Thanks very much for joining me tonight. It's just popped on a little bit early just to make sure everything's working. Okie dokie dokie. And we'll just wait until 10 o'clock to say, oh, here, no. There we go. Aha, that's better. Good job that I popped on a wee moment early just to check everything's okay. I did not have my microphone turned on. Aha. Well, worth doing, isn't it? Just coming up 10 o'clock, folks, so I'll say hello on the hour. Let me just tidy that up. We've been having a bit of a week of it here. Yeah, so if anybody's out there, do say hello. And we're getting on with our Children of Dune book club tonight. And we're starting to push towards the back of the book. We're not much further to go, actually, to be honest with you. There we go, folks. There's 10 o'clock, so I'll say hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me, as always. My name's Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as the Doghouse. And tonight we're looking at chapters 50 and 51 of Frank Herbert's Children of Dune. And as I said, we're making real progress with the book. My copy, there's no extraneous pages or anything like that. So the last page of my copy is 426. And by the time we're done tonight, we'll be on 338. So less than 100 to go. And we have lots of these little short chapters that we're pairing up at the minute. Pardon me, got a real creaky throat on me tonight, so bear with me, folks. I've taken some honey. Let me just get my book thingy down there. There we go. And as usual, hopefully it'll sort itself out within a few minutes. Let me get some fluids. Yes, indeed. So we're back to our normal time tonight. Previously, we had to go with the Friday. So we got our work done nice and early this week. 2 short chapters for you tonight, chapter 50 and chapter 51. One of these deals with Muriz and Leto at Shuloch, and very much is a kind of intrigue, building on the kind of myths and legends of the Fremen. And then, of course, chapter 51 is one of those little chapters that Frank Herbert does very, very well, where we get a sudden bit of action between two characters and a bit of violence, basically. And we have Gurney sorting out Namri, which is quite an interesting little chapter. And we get some information revealed, kind of a bit more of what's going on in the background. Almost in a kind of typical, the villain spilling his guts, just monologuing, almost that kind of thing. There's Carlos saying, hey, Doc, and everyone's storming here, so poor signal. I'll hang out as long as I can. Sorry to hear that, Carlos. Yeah, we've got the same here. It's looking like it wants to thunder and lightning here. Pardon me, what have we got? 52% humidity, 21.6 degrees here at the moment. But we've had a horrific July, Carlos, but it's been like this a lot. So you see I have an old telescope there behind me. Haven't got a single clear night to have a look at anything with it, you know. But storming here. I hope all is well, Carlos. Anyway, batten down the hatches. I quite like a storm for feeling comfy and cozy in your own home. There's something about it that can be nice, but at the same time, there's storms and there's storms, aren't there? It can be a little bit terrifying sometimes. We had winds up to about 120 miles an hour here with our last big storm, I suppose. And there's a factory over just next to us there. Got a fair amount of damage done to it, you know. But stay with us if you can, Carlos. There's Bojack Harkness saying hi all. Hi, Bojack. Thank you very much for joining us as always. Pardon me. Yeah, we've had a bit of a week actually. We've just had my wife was coming home yesterday. Something bizarre happened that we've never seen happen before. Is that the middle of one of our tires disintegrated in the middle around the axis, I feel like that. And there's metal mesh in the tire, and it's basically the tire has, I don't know what it's heated up, expanded. This metal stuff inside it has come out and acted like a flail. And completely blown away the whole back right hand side of the car. I've never seen such damage to a car as done by a tire, you know. Bizarre. So we've been having a bit of a bit of an odd one. We're off to see Rocky Horror the previous week up in the Belfast Opera House. The Rocky Horror Show. We've been longing to see that. That was fantastic. That's an ongoing touring show, I know. So if it comes to your area, folks, and you get a chance to check it out, I think Carlos was telling me you performed in it. Was that right, Carlos? I'm hoping to hit all my correspondence very soon, folks. So bear with me on all of that. And we've been hitting a good bit of science fiction this week. I suppose in honor of Rocky Horror, I was checking out a few of the films from science fiction double feature. So I rewatched been rewatching things like When Worlds Collide, and what else did I watch this week? The Day the Earth Stood Still, which I have to tell, it's been a few years since I watched them. They're two of my favorites. I just enjoyed them so much. They're so good. I said this in Hi Doc, Hi All, and Connor saying we get tornadoes fairly regularly, so storms aren't as much fun here. Yeah, I should Coco. If you're if you're in that part of the world, Carlos, tornadoes aren't even remotely funny, are they? But this must be, I've seen some of them on YouTube and stuff like that. Pardon me. They're scary looking, aren't they? Cynthia said, I've started reading E.R. Edison's The Worm Ouroboros to my husband. I haven't read it since I was a kid. Great wordsmith. I haven't read it myself, Cynthia. The Worm Ouroboros. That sounds interesting. Let me just grab that. One that I quite recommending. I don't know if it's that kind of book. Romance read by Keith Anderson. When is that from? 1922. I'm not familiar. That looks like a good read. Book describes the protracted war between the domineering King Gorus of Witchland and the Lords of Demonland in an imaginary world that appears mainly medieval and partly reminiscent of Norse saga. Work is slightly related to Edison's later Zimiambian trilogy and collectively are sometimes referred to as the Zimiambian series. The Worm Ouroboros is written largely in 17th century English. I haven't read that. That sounds like a good read. I do kind of like that kind of if it sort of has that kind of sensibility about it, that kind of fantasy from that era. Things like the King of Elfland's Daughter, which again I'd missed when I was young. That was fantastic, absolutely brilliant. It's a fantasy classic from the 20s. Yeah, I mean that would be the sort of fantasy that I like. Something I kind of had a wee bit of a war with fantasy way back when. Fell out of love with it for a long time. But yes, indeed, that sounds like, yeah. I must keep an eye out for that. The one of what I have got. I've got so many to read at the minute, Cynthia, but kind of heading in that direction, I suppose. I've got Vikram and the Vampire to get through by with the a Richard Burton story, which I'm looking forward to. I've got so many good things to read, and I'm nearly finished. Utopia by Thomas More at the minute, and I say I'm on the Quran at the minute too. Trying to get through that. That's a bit heavy going. But yeah, I hope you're all absorbing science fiction, fantasy in various forms out there. And I've been reading some stuff for the station actually as well, which I'm looking hopefully getting up on there soon. Some interesting stuff. Some maybe a couple of poems, a couple of stories, etc., and a couple of original videos hopefully coming your way soon, folks. So there we go. But yeah, that's the Worm Ouroboros. I'm going to write that one down. Actually, that sounds. Because probably the best of the fantasy books that I've read recently. Again, I look back at that and I kind of considered, I suppose the book that I read prior to that would be the Game of Thrones stuff. And then I reread the Elric series. Thoroughly enjoyed those, But the best fantasy book that I've read in a while was The King of Elfland's Daughter, which I highly recommend. And it's not been that long since I read it. I'd like to give it a year or so and then maybe read it again. E.R. Edison's The Worm. Yeah, that sounds fun. There's a different sensibility about writing back in those days, if you see what I mean. The late 19th, early 20th century. There is, as you put it there, great wordsmithery. That's what makes these stories really good, isn't it? You know, it's the same with Robert E. Howard and Lovecraft and Ashton Clark Smith, people like that. You know. Bojack saying, I'm in the middle of the Book of the New Sun and reread a three body. Ah, you're good. Nice light reading for you, Bojack. Yeah, I would really like to reread the Three Body Problem. It's about giving it time, isn't it? It's such a big read. And the Book of the New Sun is I love it. You can probably figure out why. It's I very much adore the Book of the New Sun. And if anybody's not read it, it's highly recommended. You know, if you've got a wee bit of knowledge of Latin and Greek, or have a dictionary of such handy, or even kind of like a dictionary of the classical world, something like that, the Book of the New Sun is an entirely different read to you. If you see what I mean, it'll open things up a lot for you, I think. But yes, I adore the Book of the New Sun, and I've read it all once. And well, actually, that's not true. I read it all once and then read the first one again because I wanted to get back to the start and kind of run through it. It's one of those, but I'm looking forward to the second read again. You know. Yeah, good stuff, folks. Excellent that you're enjoying your books. I've got something else on the way soon at the minute. Let me see. But got some Ambrose beers there as well. And I've just finished a whole chunk of Harry Harrison's stainless steel rap books, which if anybody's not familiar and you fancy a good laugh, check out the stainless steel rap. Right, sorry, let's get it going, folks. Here we go. Chapter 50. Here's our epigraph. The future of prescience cannot always be locked into the rules of the past. The threads of existence tangle accordingly to many unknown laws. Prescient future insists on its rules. It will not conform to the ordering of the Zen Sunni, nor to the ordering of science. Prescience builds a relative integrity. It demands the work of this instant, always warning that you cannot weave every thread into the fabric of the past. This is from a Kalima, the words of Muad'Dib, the Shuloch commentary. We've had Kalima before in relation to the 6 Kalimas. So Kalima, I think, means word or statement, doesn't it? So again, we're picking up some wee terms that we've heard before. The future of prescience cannot always be locked into the rules of the past. The threads of existence tangle accordingly to many unknown laws. So prescient future insists on its rules. I suppose, you know, for this to happen, you must do this. You must. Does that make sense? You must follow a certain, I suppose, order of events, if you like. It will not conform to the ordering of the Zen Sunni, nor to the ordering of science. So, in other words, both these systems, if you like, way of looking at things, either Zen Sunni philosophy, religion, ideas, etc., or even through scientific method, it won't conform to what you think, if you like. I think that's what I'm getting from this. Prescience builds a relative integrity. Okay, it demands the work of this instant, always warning that you cannot weave every thread into the fabric of the past. And I assume that you can't really weave any threads into the fabric of the past. But the gist of it I get is that probably you always must stay on a particular path. It's a bizarre. It's not bizarre. It's one of those epigraphs where, how would I put it? Is it maybe thinking a bit of general semantics, that kind of thing? The future, whenever we're talking about the future of prescience, by the way, I don't think we're talking in that sense. It's the future that prescience predicts, if you see what I mean. Cannot be locked into the rules of the past. Threads of existence tangle according to many unknown laws. prescient future insists on its rules. It will not conform to the ordering of the Zensuri nor to the ordering of the Sense. Yeah, it's basically, as far as I can tell, it does its own thing, and its integrity is relative to itself, if that makes sense, to the person with the prescient vision. I'm not quite sure what Frank's trying to say about the past though here through this. If you see what I mean, I find it a little bit confusing. And we have absolutes here as well. So just in terms of it, the future of prescient cannot always be locked into the rules of the past. So the suggestion is that it can be locked into the rules of the past, but just not always. At the end of the statement, we have it demands the work of this instant, always warning that you cannot weave every thread into the fabric of the past. So I suppose the second one, as always, is in the statement of there's always a warning, but it isn't also an absolute. We have a couple of them in there, and I just think I find it a little bit confusing. I found it. I don't know, how would I put it. I thought if I asked Carl Sagan to explain this, I would get less double talk. Does that make sense? There's something about it that's, I don't know. It's a little bit confusing. I don't know if anybody's got any ideas on it. That's what I think. And I suppose we'll see how it links into what happens. So here we go. So if anybody's got any ideas on the epigraph, that's kind of my best thing with it there, I think. So Muriz brought the ornithopter in over Shuloch. I'm sorry, we're carrying directly on from the previous chapter's action here, which is not common within the Dune series. So Muriz brought the ornithopter in over Shuloch with a practiced ease. Leto, seated beside him, felt the armed presence of Behaleth behind them. Everything went on trust now, and the narrow thread of his vision to which he clung, if that failed, Allahu Akbar. Sometimes one had to submit to a greater order. So, in other words, is that religion or an actual God that he's talking about here? Destiny, fate, the universe. Allahu Akbar here. Frank's version is, of course, God is most great. God is great from the Arabic Allahu, which is for Allah, which is God, and from Akbar, which means great. Everything went on trust now. The narrow threads of existence that of his vision to which he clung. So I mean, I think there's definitely something linking this to the tangle according to many unknown laws. Yeah, I think it's probably to do with Leto, isn't it? It's certain possibilities as one future appears, I think, or you arrive at a certain event that's predicted, that's a part of your presence, then different alternatives cease to exist, I think. And again, we kind of get this idea of threads and stuff like that with the fates and so on. So if all else fails, submit to a greater order. Now, the beauty of Shuloch was impressive in this desert. Its unmarked presence here spoke of many bribes and many deaths, of many friends in high places. Leto could see at Shuloch's heart, a cliff-walled pan with interfering blind canyons leading down into it. A thick growth of shade scale and salt bushes lined the lower edge of these canyons, with an inner ring fan palms indicating the water riches of this place. Pardon me. Yeah, I left out a word there. With an inner ring of fan palms. There we are. That's why that didn't read well. The buildings were green buttons scattered on the sand. There would live the cast out of the cast out, those who could go no lower except into death. So I've done a wee kind of our little green huts. There we go. The cast out of the cast out at Shuloch. Muriz, again, I suppose the green, if you like, the buildings are green buttons, crude buildings of green bush and spice fiber. That green is that kind of death with life. In Dune, green tends to represent death. Excuse me. So, Muriz landed in the pan near the base of one of the canyons. A single structure stood on the sand directly ahead of the thopter, a patch of desert vines and bajato leaves, all lined with heat-fused spice fabric. It was the living replica of the first crude still tents. I just realised I never looked up the word bajato. I have to have a nosy at that. Missed the word. Let's have a wee quick look. Here, I'll actually finish reading what I was reading. Sorry, folks, that's bad of me. Let me just read that again. Muriz landed in the pan near the base of one of the canyons. A single structure stood in the sand directly ahead of the thopter, a patch of desert vines and bajato leaves, all lined with heat-fused spice fabric. It was the living replica of the first crude still tents, and it spoke of degradation for some who lived in Shuloch. Leto knew the place would leak moisture and would be full of night biters from the nearby growth. So this was how his father lived. And poor Sabiha, here would be her punishment. So we get a bit of pity there. A sense of pity from Leto, and also, something ominous there, perhaps. Or a sense of, that kind of thing. Bear with me a second, folks. Let's see. Broken. Oh, maybe not. I'll have to have a wee look at that. Bear with me a second. Just have I spelled it correctly? That's Bajato. Yeah. Well, I'll see if I can find that one for next time, folks. Bajato leaves. Unless anyone's got any ideas at the moment. But yeah, sorry, I missed that one. Cynthia said, regarding the prologue, I think of it as a warning not to rely too much on past lives as guidance, experience from where to go in the future, and a commentary on our dependence on making order or threads. Very good, Cynthia. I was a little bit lost with it, to be honest with you. That's the words of Muad'Dib, isn't it? Always belong there on the threads of existence, tangled cord to many unknown laws. The ordering of Zen, Sunni, or the ordering of science. Another integrity demands the work of this instant, always warning that you cannot weave every thread into the fabric of the past. I've got a sense of being trapped in the now as well with it, But aren't we all? Thank you very much. I found it a little bit tricky to try and interpret what was going on there. A warning not to rely too much on. The threads of the past lives, etc. That would make sense. That helps a lot. Thank you very much. No, I'll ponder. Bojack Harkness. Carlos, yes, Netflix has season 1 of 3 Body series. It does indeed. But the books are a bit of I think once you're into them, once they get going, they go really well. I think they flow well, but they're big, and the scope of the thing is big. But I'll tell you, the Netflix series I thought wasn't bad at all, but by God, is it dumbed down? It really is seriously dumbed down for the public's consumption. The books are very clever. There's also, I think, all of it's been made. I think there's a Chinese version of it. There's a Chinese TV series of the 3 Body Problem, and I think it's the whole thing. I caught a clip of a teardrop in action against the human fleet. Sorry, which was quite cool. Only saw a little bit of it, but I think it was on YouTube or something. Not just the other day. So there's two. But yes, indeed. Three body problems, a very interesting thing. Chinese is on Amazon Prime. Is it? I must check it out. I've got that. Yeah, I think it's. I did have a look at it and see it's quite a big show, isn't it? I think, and I think the Chinese version's gone well into detail. But it's definitely worth a read. If anybody hasn't read the Three Body, the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, yeah, it's somebody said it on here. It wasn't me. It was somebody in the audience. I mean, it's well, it'd be something similar to describing what would happen if you weaponized Flatland. Um, in some cases of the parts of that book, but it's also a bit of a love letter to several other science fiction novels that are mentioned a fair bit within the story. Stars My Destination being one of them. Pardon me. I think you'll hear it mentioned in the TV show as well. We get some fluids, folks. So this is where the cast out on Jacurutu send their cast out, the folks that they think are useless to the tribe or no good, and they send them here to basically do a bit of slave labor and then kill them, take their water. And so we have this structure that's kind of a replica of the very first still tents. And it says we're told it would leak moisture, full of night biters from nearby growth. This is how his father lived in poor Sabiha. Here would be her punishment. So I did a little bit of, where are we? A doodle for this one. I just drew it like a tent, if you don't mind, the green vines and stuff. I don't know if you can see that, okay. Put in a impression there. So just doing some wee kind of doodles myself to get the sense of the thing. Pardon me. So the one thing I was wondering was how did Sabiha get here so quickly? I think that's the only thing that doesn't make quite sense here. Doesn't quite make sense here. Sorry, excuse my oh dear, my syntax. At Muriz's order, Leto let himself out the thopter, jumped down to the sand, and strode toward the hut. He could see many people working farther toward the canyon among the palms. They looked tattered, poor, and the fact that they barely glanced at him or at the thopter said much of the oppression here. Pardon me. Leto could see the rock lip of a quannet beyond the workers, and there was no mistaking the sense of the moisture in this air. Open water. Passing the hut, Leto saw it was as crude as he'd expected. He pressed on to the quannet, peered down, and saw the swirl of predator fish in the dark flow. The workers, avoiding his eyes, went on with clearing sand away from the line of rock openings. Pardon me, folks. I had a wee drop of honey just before I came on there, but so Muriz came up behind Leto and said, "You stand on the boundary between fish and worm. Each of these canyons has its worms. This quannet has been opened, and we will remove the fish presently to attract sand trout." "Of course," Leto said. "Holding pens, you sell sand trout and worms off planet." It was Muad'Dib's suggestion. Now, that's quite important, isn't it? That there's a trade going on between Shuloch, Jacurutu, and off-worlders with sand trout and small worms, and it was Muad'Dib's idea, according to Muriz. "I know," is what Leto says, "but none of your worms or sand trout survive for long away from Dune." So I've got a little skull here for all the worms taken off world. We've no idea how many that is, but they all die. Not yet, Muriz said, but someday. It's a weird thing, but almost it's as if it's his dream, isn't it? Someday we'll get a worm off planet and it will live. Not yet, but someday. "Not in 10,000 years, Leto said. and he turned to watch the turmoil on Muriz's face. Questions flowed there like the water in the Quanet. Could this son of Muad'Dib really read the future? Some still believed Muad'Dib had done it. But how could a thing such as this be judged? Presently, Muriz turned away, led them back to the hut. He opened the crude door seal, motioned for Leto to enter. There was a spice oil lamp burning against the far wall, and a small figure squatted beneath it, back to the door. The burning oil gave off a heavy fragrance of cinnamon. They've sent down a new captive to care for Muad'Dib's Sietch, Muriz sneered. If she serves well, she may keep her water for a time. He confronted Leto. Some think it evil to take such water. Those lace-shirt Fremen now make rubbish heaps in their new towns. When has Dune ever before seen rubbish heaps? When we get such as this one, he gestured toward the figure by the lamp, they're usually half wild with fear, lost to their own kind, and never accepted by true Fremen. Do you understand me, Leto Batia? I've just gone with this, that some think it's evil. It is. It is evil. Let's see what else do we have here with him, what he says. We get this little rant about lace shirt Fremen and the rubbish heaps, don't we? In the new towns, there's real contempt and tucked in behind that exclamation mark, I think. This is basically the excuse. He changes the subject. The suggestion is, some think it's evil to take water, but to take water is the euphemism to kill someone. So some think it's evil to kill someone because they're useless like this. But those lace shirt Fremen, they make rubbish. He switches topics here basically to suggest that Sabiha, this is what I got from this, is rubbish. That she's something to be just discarded and thrown away. That they can get some use out of her, fair enough. They've used in relation to captives like Sabiha, they're usually half wild with fear because they've been sent here to be killed, lost to their own kind, and never accepted by a true Fremen. Do you understand me, Leto Batty? And I think what is it? Do you understand? Is that it's a kind he justifies this. I think it's because the rubbish they're cast out. Whenever they take their water, it'll be a kindness to them. That's what I got the sense of from Muriz here. This justification of it. That they're usually half wild with fear. That's because they will be murdered by these people. And do you understand me, Leo? About everything next that it's a kindness is his excuse that she will be killed. I understand you. The crouching figure had not moved. You speak of leading us, Muriz said. Fremen are led by men who've been blooded. What could you lead us in? Kralizec, Leto said, keeping his attention on the crouched figure. I'm a wee bit disappointed here with Frank. Frank is a man who enjoys Bangaria, the very, very generous lacing of his literary works with exclamation marks. And as much as there's actually a couple of cases here where I think we should have exclamation marks and we don't. And Kralizec, Leto said, I would Bangaria that up. I would give that a big exclamation mark. But Kralizec, Leto said, keeping his attention on the crouched figure. So Muriz glared at him, brows contracted over his indigo eyes. Kralizec, that wasn't merely war or revolution, that was the Typhoon struggle. It was a word from the furthermost Fremen legends, the battle at the end of the universe. Kralizec. So, pardon me, this is only the second time we've had it mentioned, I believe. Let me see. Oh, goodness. Let me just grab books. I think the first time that we do have it mentioned is way back with Muriz. Isn't that correct? Let me see. Let me just bring up the text here. Pardon me. I just wanted to check to see if we've done the work on the word before. because I've gone ahead and done it again anyway. Let me see. Right, bear with me a wee second, folks, just while I... Kralizec. We've got 17 mentions in the book. Let's see. I think, let me just say, this is the second time, isn't it? Kralizec, Leto said, keeping his attention on the Christ figure. Yes, it is. So the first time that we've had Kralizec mentioned in Children of Dune, it was to do with Muriz, and Asan Tariq. Among the cast out, we have a special test for manhood. Muriz said, "One day my son will be a judge in Shuloch. We must know that he can act as he must. Our judges cannot forget Jacurutu and our day of despair. Kralizec, the typhoon struggle, lives in our hearts." It was all spoken with the flat intonation of ritual. Now, let me just see if I can find this a wee second, folks. Can we become primitive now? Right, bear with me a wee second. Oh, there he is. That sounds right. Sorry, bear with me a wee second. I was silent. Never great with these kind of things. Figure out what chapter it was. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll maybe leave it for a wee bit later on just to find. I was just wondering if I had done the work on the word before Kralizec. If I had, it's only been mentioned once, then that's where it would have been previously when we met Muriz. Let's see. No, I'll tell you what, folks, I'm not finding it easily, so I'll maybe just leave it for next time. See if we can find it wherever he is. But anyway, it's if I've done my work right anyway, it won't matter because we've got it here now. Kralizec, I've had a wee nosy. Oh, and it looks like it's in chapter 12. Sorry, I had a different thing up there on the front of the screen. Thank you. It's in chapter 12. Right, no bother. I can find that. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Oh, you guys are great sometimes. Sometimes, all the time. Sorry, you're great all the time, but just get the right thing sometimes. Here we go. Call Muriz. Thank you so much, Cynthia. You're brilliant. Right, let me just see. Did I do the work? What did we get? Typhoon struggle, apocalyptic event. I got Kralk for. No, I didn't really get far with it, did I, the last time? I went with Kralk, Turkish for Queen, question mark, later cloud of darkness at the end of the universe, after fog. It looks like we had bother with it. I had a bit more fun. Generally, the suggestion is it's a made up word by Frank. So it looks like I didn't do well. Also, the sacrifice of the Fremen guides and the soft-featured city dwellers. It looks like I didn't do well there. So let's see if we do any better tonight then. Right. Excellent. Then this is worth it. Kralizec, can't find a word for it. But if we split the word up, there's some options. So first of all, Krali. If we split it up into Krali and Zek or Zeke. So Krali would be Persian from the word Kral, which means king. The I would be a suffix in that language, meaning belonging to. So Krali would be belonging to the king. Kral being king. Kral also is a Dutch surname, which comes from the word Kray, which is Middle Dutch, which means crow. So our Krali bit can mean belonging to the king of, king, etc., or the crow of, if you like. Now, we can go with Zek then for the second part of it. ZEC, if we like, is actually Serbo-Croat for rabbit of a hare. Now, I've just gone through these. We have it in Middle High German for Zek was a wood tick. Dermacenter variabilis. and as a nickname for in German, a nickname for an exhausting person, someone who just drains you. Um, Interestingly enough, then we have Zeke, if we pronounce it that way, which is the short form of Ezekiel, which is God strengthens. And then we also have another Zek, which is the dated from Dutch, which is the dated or formal singular past subjunctive of Zeken, which means pissing. And finally, it also could be sec, pronounced sec that way, from the French meaning dry, from the Latin siccus, which is dry, also sober, thirsty. So it's also Zex, a shortened form of secundus, which means second following a noun. So if we run with that and try and make any kind of sense out of it, what it could be, and when we say it's the king of, what we mean is it's like the mother of all storms. This would be the king of all. Does that make sense? So we could either have the Kralizec, the typhoon struggle, the battle at the end of the universe. If Frank's mucked about with the etymology here, then it could mean the king of all dryness, the king of all thirst, the king of all piss, the king of all rabbits, or the king of all that exhausts us. And at the same time, we could also use the word crow in there. It could be the crow of dryness, like in storm crow, if you like. But I've written here in this case with my words here that the king in this case is like in the mother of all. Pardon me. Now, if we wanted to just, I've run with typhoon as well, by the way, which comes from the Greek word typhon, who's the father of the winds, and the agon bit. Sorry, typhoon struggle. Struggle in Greek would be agon, which is your gathering, your contest, your competition, this kind of thing. A struggle in the soul, as much as it's competition, struggle, etc., is also a personification, a deity. And I've written down, see, in terms of agon, see, protagonist, antagonist, etc., read agon, Aristide. See, first mention in Children of Dune electronic version. Kralizec, yeah. So that's what I've got. I don't know how you would interpret it. Typhoon struggle, this huge kind of struggle that instead of the mother of, the king of, the father of, if you like, all the biggest, the king of all piss, the king of all that exhausts us, the king of all dryness. It's interesting. It was fun just doing, breaking the word apart. That's the best I've got for it, folks. I do think it's the king of all storms, if you like, that kind of thing. The king of all dryness, that which exhausts us. There are multiple meanings there, depending on your languages, I suppose. And if anybody's got anything else, I'm love to hear it. But I did my best with it anyway. Look, splitting the word up, Kral, Krali, Zek, different versions of it, and check spelling. So that's the best. I think it's like the King Storm, if you like, of some kind. And Frank's created a portmanteau word there. But yes, indeed. So this is our Kralizec. This is the big fear, the big threat, the bogeyman, or MacGuffin almost, if you like, if it was a film. Pardon me, there's Chaya Rivka says, Shalom, all shalom, Chaya. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you're well. Good to see you. And thank you very much for sending me those scans on Hiram. That was very interesting. Dear, oh dear. I really must get myself a copy of the Hebrew Bible. It's different, isn't it, than what I'm used to reading. But some of the stories are very interesting. But I especially like the one. Yeah, I didn't get the gist of how bad that individual was until I read about him feeding somebody bits of themselves, dipped in vinegar. So that was I've read through it. Thank you very much. We'll be doing some wee stuff on it soon, because I think we're hitting very much I'll be doing this wee episode on all of these things very, very shortly. Ritual, and we'll throw in who's harem, best guesses, ritual, and what's the other thing? We're also going to have a look at the Moapo of Leto Atreides. So we're going to have a good read a fair bit of that stuff too. Sometimes I forget some of these wee books and are a bit obscure and they might not be easy for people to get a hold of. Though Gutenberg is generally Project Gutenberg is generally good for that kind of thing. But yeah, excellent. Very different, yes. Well, it's if you took just from the story that we talked about previously about Noah, yeah, the Old Testament that I've grown up with certainly is a heavily censored, chopped, in almost every way, and it's interesting because some of these stories are really, really fascinating. And have I just they're much better. That's the problem for me. They're 10 times better. I don't know why people wreck stories and by removing things that they think people can't handle, this kind of thing, or that that's terrible. But yes, indeed, it kind of helps me sometimes when you read stuff like that, and you kind of wonder why weren't there stories like that actually in the Old Testament? And you kind of go that were like the Greeks and stuff, and then having read things like you go, well, there are. But yes, indeed, very different. Yes, much appreciated, much appreciated. Yeah, they're a bit. I love the kind of gory kind of. There's such grim and grotesque aspect sometimes to myths and things like that, isn't there? But I thought, yeah, that was very grotesque. I think I was saying it kind of reminded me a little bit on the end of Furiosa. Well, there you go, folks. China just caught me running through my best guess as to what Kralizec could mean, etymologically speaking. I think the king of all the things that could exhaust us, the king of all dryness, possibly the king of all piss or pissing. I quite like that one. But you could also substitute crow possibly as well. But I'm pretty sure Krali in this sense from Kral is king. And the Zek bit, as I said, we've got a number of things there that we could possibly interpret. I've read them all out too, so it's you could put the different ones together and see what you think. But when we say the king of all that, but think of like the mother of all storms, that kind of thing. That's what we mean there. We're here with Kralizec. We're here, folks. The tall Fremen swallowed convulsively. This sprat was as unpredictable as a city dandy. Muriz to the squatting figure. Woman. Oh, here, hang on. Sorry, did I read that correctly? That didn't flow right at all, did it? Let me just read that again, folks. I'll just get my. Sprat wasn't. Sprat's a good word, isn't it? Unpredictable as a city dandy, with a big exclamation mark there. Muriz turned to the squatting figure. Oh, I've missed a word there. That's what's happened. Turned. To the squatting figure. Woman, Liban Wahid, he commanded, bring us the spice drink. I had a bit of bother with this one. Liban, I got, is actually the word for from Libanus is the word for Lebanon. But it can also refer to frankincense, being victorious, successful, blessed. Wahid is one, unique, absolute one, but also alone. So I don't know how you could read that really, but I got the gist of it that he's go and get us leave us be, basically, leave us alone, go bring us a spice drink, this kind of thing. So yeah, that's the best I've got with that one. Chai is just saying it's amazing how much is lost in translation. It is indeed, and it's not just translation. It is, if you go back all the way to things like the Martionists and the Montanists, taking a penknife to the Bible and all of this, chopping this, chopping out. We don't want this, we don't want that. But it's not just whenever you actually get rid of whole books, because they don't go with what you kind of want to say. But it's where we remove pieces. Or decide that things aren't right. Things like I've been done with Aesop's fables, for example, as well. And it is indeed. Translation's a funny thing, you know. There's some. I think every language has got a set of amazing words that you've got a word that just has an entire concept, you know. That's often kind of hard to explain to other peoples through different languages. You know, we've got the concept of the crack here, CRAIC. You know, how's the crack? What's the crack? How's something was good crack? You know, this kind of the crack means kind of all sorts of things, but how's it kind of means how's life in general? How's life treating you? How's the universe being? How's how at the same time it can also be a synonym for fun and enjoyment, you know. But when people just say how's the crack in this country, it's just how's life, you know, is everything good, is life treating you well. It means so much, and it's kind of hard to explain. And you know, okay, you could say, oh, it was good crack, or you know, that kind of thing, you know, just something you'd seen or enjoyed, you know. But yes, indeed, and it's interesting. I'll tell you a good one a good while back. I was telling my wife about it, that I went to see Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in the cinema way back when it came out, and I was the only person in the cinema, and I was on my own. Got to see the whole thing on my own, and it was fantastic. And then I got it on DVD, and of course it's in Mandarin with the English subtitles. And when I watched it on the DVD at home, there's the Chinese Mandarin with the English subtitles for that, and that's one story, if you like. And then there's an English dub, which has subtitles, which is again slightly different, a fair bit different than that. You know, in actuality, it was quite interesting. But yeah, it's, you know, and some translations can bring different things. I think some can embellish and lend, you know, good things to it. You know, depends if they're prose or poetic or what's the approach of the translator. But I certainly don't like throwing out events from stories. I don't like getting rid of characters. I don't like chucking out key events or artifacts, that kind of things that are integral to a story, even if they are a bit gruesome, you know. But I always just say that people, sometimes I get parents asking me about, oh, could you recommend a book on the Greek myths, you know, for our kids who are maybe about 10 or 11? No, is the answer. No, maybe, you know, go get a kids book on them, something like that. But in terms of the books, explain they're pretty harsh things, you know. They're pretty they're quite nasty in many ways. Pardon me. But yes, indeed, talking recently about a translation of the Toyn. Two different translations that I have here, and how one is just wow, and the other one is, you know, I've got a few translations of the Iliad that are a bit like that as well. So here we have Sabiha here anyway. I think is the spice ring. Leto's just arrived here. As I said, I think she got here very quickly. Is the only thing that I had a wee bit of bother with this. She hesitated. Leto, this is Leto. Do as he says, Sabiha, Leto said. She jumped to her feet, whirling. She stared at him, unable to take her gaze from his face. You know this one? Muriz asked. She is Namri's niece. She offended Jacurutu and they have sent her to you. Namri? But Liban Wahid, Leto said. She rushed past them, tore herself through the door seal, and they heard the sound of her running feet. She will not go far, Muriz said. He touched a finger to the side of his nose. A kin of Namri, eh? Interesting. What did she do to offend? She allowed me to escape. Leto turned then and followed Sabiha. He found her standing at the edge of the Quannet. Leto moved up beside her and looked down at the water. There were birds in the nearby fan palms, and he heard their calls, their wings. The workers made scraping sounds as they moved sands. Still, he did as Sabiha did, looking down deep into the water and its reflections. The corners of his eyes saw blue parakeets in the palm fronds. One flew across the Quannet, and he saw it reflected in a silver swirl of fish all wrung together as though birds and predators swam in the same firmament. Now, let's just back up a wee bit. Yeah, she will not go far, Muriz said. He touched the finger to the side of his nose. A kin of Namri, eh? Interesting. What did she do to the affair? I've written next to that, why does he not know? And then part two, just my little questions. Two, that she got there very quickly. Surprised that she got there ahead of Leto. There's a very nice bit of writing by Frank there. Just that descriptive writing, just the sounds and the sense of the whole place. Looking deep into the waters, its reflections, that kind of thing. His eyes saw blue parakeets in the palm fronds. One flew across the quad. Nice picture painted for us. I like the reflections and some. It reminded me a wee bit of that kind of thing. You go out in the countryside and you look into deep pools and wells and things like that. Sort of thing that Heaney used to write about. And of course, reflections are quite important in this book, aren't they? I think. And I think he's trying to show a little bit of empathy, I think. Sabiha cleared her throat. You hate me, Leto said. You shamed me. You shamed me before my people. They held an Isnad and sent me here to lose my water, all because of you. So, in other words, to lose my water is to be killed. She's aware of her fate. In other words, that's what we're talking about. The people that, as Muriz tells us, whenever they come here, they're shaking. They're barely keeping it together, because that's what's some guy escaped and she's been sentenced to death for it, and she's not that old. And it suggests a bit of harshness amongst the cast out that's possibly not even well beyond the harshness of the Fremen themselves. It's a death sentence for a minor mistake, really, isn't it? It's not that big a deal, I wouldn't think. If you kill people, if you execute people for making mistakes like that, nobody learns anything. And you have a society of idiots or basically a lot of dead people, I think. But mistakes are essential to learning, Saying you're right, it gets lost in translation as well as censorship, and very little of the commentaries are ever translated. They reconcile a lot of the subtle and not so subtle seeming contradictions. Yes, indeed. And it's interesting that ultimately with the Old Testament, you do have a set of original writings there. Not all the stories are original. We can go further back, with some of them. That's what always fascinates me. But it's almost every story is changed, is censored, is edited, is embellished, even stolen. Myself and Julian Chai were having a chat recently about a poem that's translated. It's a Penguin Classics edition that I have, and it was a poem by Horace, and the translation in it, I would argue, is a product of British racism and British Empire. And it sure as hell isn't as how I would have translated the poem, and particularly a certain word in it. And I'm actually I'm still trying to figure out how the hell that got past the editors. But people do all sorts of things to books. And even myself trying to work at this occasionally, get a wee bit tired, make a wee mistake, look up, lose my attention, this kind of thing. I might accidentally rewrite a sentence or forget. I do it quite a lot actually. To be honest, there's where I start writing a different thing out again. Have to We were talking, I think, previously about was it the line of transmitters? Isn't that what it was called? Something like that. Community transmitters. How stories are carried and down through the ages is not just all sorts of things. It's that's what I love about it. That's what I love about mythology. Certainly when you get books like Dune that are heavily based and immersed on myth and things like that, is the quest both for the original story and the original event. I think that's what fascinates me about all of these kind of stories from all of these cultures in the ancient world, my own included. And even for example, the tales of Cuchulainn and stuff like that, and how heavily that they've been altered by Christian writers. What's the real flavor? What originally, if you could de-Christianize them, remove certain elements from it, I think it's fascinating. And when we do a wee talk, by the way, I've got a couple of things to read for you from Northrop Frye. Just in relation to sort of literary criticism and the mode, if you like, that an author might work in. And the reason why I want to read it to you is just because we would technically see a shift in mode between our characters in these three books whenever we go to the God Emperor. I'm not sure if you'll agree, but we can have a wee natter about it, yeah. But yes, indeed, and at the same time, local flavour, as if you look at the Greek myths, you get a version of one story in this village, and then up the road it's slightly different, and not, and there's so many problems with it. But at the same time, without translation, Chaya, what would we have? We wouldn't be able to share, the great literary works of our cultures with other people, Hmm. My reading would be pretty poor, I have to say, if I without translators. I love translators, love what they do, and the more care that they take, the better. Hmm. Do. So poor old Sabiha here. Yes. Let's see. So yeah, she's been sentenced to death. Muriz laughed from close behind them, and now you see, Leo Batty, that our spirit river has many tributaries, but my water flows in your veins. That is no, and I've got tributary here. Hang on, is that the right word we're after, really? No, I didn't think so. I just thought, was that another form of that word? But it should be tributary, which I've written in. There we go. That is no tributary. Sabiha is the fate of my vision, and I follow her. I fled across the desert to find my future here in Shuloch. And really, I suppose that's the thread that he's been following, hasn't it? Isn't it? Follow Sabiha to Shuloch, to one thing will lead to another. You, and he pointed at Sabiha, threw his head back in laughter. It will not be as either of you might believe, Leto said. Remember this, Muriz. I have found the footprints of my worm. He felt tears swimming in his eyes then. Sabiha, this is Sabiha, sorry. He gives water to the dead, Sabiha whispered. Again, it's pretty ominous, isn't it? Are they the dead? I haven't read ahead, folks, so I'm as far as I am at chapter 51, I can't remember. I got the sense that this is ominous. He is giving water for the dead, and it's quite possibly for these two. Even Muriz stared at him in awe. Fremen never cried unless it was the most profound gift of the soul. Almost embarrassed, Muriz closed his mouth seal, pulled his Jabala hood low over his brows. Leto peered beyond the man, said, Here in Shuloch they still pray for dew at the desert's edge. Go, Muriz, and pray for Kralizec. I promise you, it will come. And I've written next to that, question mark, is he lying? Dear, oh dear. And that's our lovely little chapter there. The myth is coming. It's the Kralizec is a myth of the cast out. Part of their legends, a battle at the end of the universe. And afterwards, you can have a 4-course meal, of course, at the restaurant at the end of the universe, Milliways. Sorry. Couldn't help it there. Yes, indeed. It's a typical apocalyptic end of the world type thing. We've got a whole bunch of them, don't we? Most societies kind of have it'll all end one day kind of thing. I don't know. End of the world myths tend to be quite bizarre, I think. They're not generally how I might imagine a world ending. Mm. But things like Ragnarok and kind of this kind of stuff, the Day of Judgment, etc., etc. This titanic battle, but this is a battle at the end of the universe. What does that even mean? As yeah, is this a thing at the end of the universe? Is that at the end of time? At the very, very end. How far ahead is this vision? Does it even exist? Is this the myth? Is this the story that Leto the Second is going to use to create his golden path? Um, is it going to be his excuse? Because it is a story here. And the question is, do we believe that the cast out of the Fremen have correctly predicted or foreseen a titanic struggle at the end of the universe? Typhoon struggle, as big as a storm can get. Interesting. It's a great wee chapter, that. It's nice and it presents Shuloch in a very interesting way. Gives us a bit of sympathy for Sabiha again. Bit of intrigue at who is Muriz, and we find out a bit more about the cast out. That even amongst the cast out, there are cast out. As I said, yeah, it's been the one thing I'm going to say about it is that it's been so many years since I've hit these books that I'm really pleased about it. I'm glad that I've left enough time to be able to come at these books, and they're still in some ways fresh to me, and kind of wondering how much of the God Emperor how much of it's going to ring a bell, and kind of trying to figure out, should I read through it first before we hit the book club, or just go with it as the way we've been doing, In the first paragraph of chapter 47, Sabiha is one of the threads that Leto has to cut. She is his possible human future with a human mate. He must deny this to become the worm, thus his tears. I was wondering, yes, indeed, this is the future that he sees with her. And it's kind of interesting that we have these two cast out, if you like. We have Namri and his niece Sabiha. We have Muriz and his son Asan Tariq, both seeming, I don't know, it seems that they're trying to get positions for these young people in the royal family. Is it potential marriage, but power positions? Which makes me wonder about how have the cast out been corrupted in a way by imperial thinking, Kralizec, Ragnarok, Armageddon. I don't think any refer to the end of time or existence, just history, life as we know it. Yeah, it's the end. It's our end, isn't it? Especially if we know what happens to planets and stars and things like that these days. But yeah, it's our problem, isn't it? I don't know. I always think they're a bit of a cop out, these kind of things. And then everybody gets to have just sort of chill afterwards and relax and live perpetually, eternally in some garden and do nothing pretty much. And I don't know. So it's often the problem for me. A lot of it is the idea of heaven isn't very appealing at all. Generally, certainly the Christian idea of heaven is not appealing to me in any shape or form. It sounds extremely tedious. No. You listen to some good old Dave Allen jokes on religion there today. Actually, I don't know if anybody knows Dave Allen is our great Irish comedian. Probably the best Irish comedian there's ever been. I think if you haven't seen or heard any of his stuff, check him out. There should be a fair bit of it on YouTube. You can download a couple of his programs off Pirate Bay, I think. But it was the joke. It was the joke where somebody had arrived in heaven, and I think it was at St. Peter to come up to him and says, "Would you like a tour?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much." And he says, "Oh, follow me." And he goes about and he says, "Well, just over here." He says, "You can see we have there we have there's the Protestants, and to their left there we have the Jews, and over here in heaven there's some of the Hindus, and And the different faiths and so on and so forth. There's the Mormons over here, and they're walking along, and he sees there's a gigantic wall there, and he goes, "Hey, Sabiha, what's this big wall for?" He goes, "Shh, keep it down." And he goes, "Well, what's the wall for?" Well, he says, "On the other side of that's all the Catholics." And he goes, "Well, what are they doing on the other side of the wall?" He says, "Well, we all keep quiet because they like to think that they're here on their own." That kind of humor. Sorry, I'm a big fan of Dave Allen. He's known as the greatest stand-up comedian who never stood up. You know, but I like those kind of silly religious jokes. But yes, the I don't know, particularly the Book of Revelations is kind of it's almost an act of terrorism, isn't it? It's just a piece of I don't know. I go with it as the ravings of a madman designed to scare the crap out of anybody. But it's not that scary, and it does have again a strong desire to create and link stories to previous stories. But yeah, well, Carlos is quite right there. Chai, every end is a new beginning. Ragnarok's like that, isn't it? It's not really an end, is it? Um, hmm, every end is a new beginning. Yes, indeed. No, excellent stuff. Thank you very much. But end of the world type myths are really. I think Ragnarok's probably one of the more fun ones to look at. Um, in that sense, Armageddon, you can get that. Battle of Armageddon's been fought, by the way. There's a Battle of Armageddon in World War One. It's originally a chariot city, wasn't it? That's kind of the reference. So that's why it was. I might be. Let me see. God has my memory. Megiddo and Evan Geezer or something like that. Chariot cities, mobile garrisons to patrol the Fertile Crescent, and so hence the source of a fair bit of fighting, that kind of thing. Mm. Because we know it. mm. I don't know. I think the end of the world comes for us all individually. I think that's just death, pretty much. But yeah, I like to think that things will keep on going. And I often get the sense that if there was a creator and he'd made all this, some kind of supreme being, God, etc., why would you come down and go, stop with having you know? I don't know. The human race's kind of thing is to evolve. I think to put an end to it would be to ruin the experiment, if you like, if that's the case. What's going on with us? Here we got chapter 51, folks. Now, this is a good one. I like this. This is one of these chapters. We've talked about. I've said that there's one of the chapters like this in the Dune series, and I'll point this. We're not come to it yet. It's whenever the honored Matres turn up. It's way down the line, and it's a chapter similar to this. But I like it when Frank does chapters like this. This is where something goes wrong, and we have a bit of a threat, and we have almost a form of Aristaya here, one-on-one combat, if you like. And it's usually a kind of sizing up of people. The particular chapter, as I said, is I think it might be a fight between an honored Matre or a Bene Gesserit, possibly, and a Bene Twi'leks face dancer. And you get the sense that the whole thing takes place in a couple of seconds, but there's a level of nuance and detail to it. This is not quite the same thing, but it's a very good chapter. It's very similar to that. And there's a sense of things going wrong right from the beginning here, I think, especially if we know the situation. So let's have a wee look at our epigraph for chapter 51. Fremen's speeches implies, let me see, yeah. Fremen's speeches implies great concision, a precise sense of expression. That should be Fremen's speeches imply great concision, a precise sense of expression. Fremen's speeches implies is not quite right, is it? It is immersed in the illusion of absolutes. Its assumptions are a fertile ground for absolutist religions. Furthermore, Fremen are fond of moralizing. They confront the terrifying instability of all things, with institutionalized statements. They say, we know there is no summa of all attainable knowledge. That is the preserve of God. But whatever man can learn, man can contain. Out of this knife-edged approach to the universe, they carve a fantastic belief in signs and omens and in their own destiny. Pardon me. This is an origin of their Kralizec legend, the war at the end of the universe. So we had a battle at the end of the universe a minute ago, didn't we? Yep, now it's a war. This is from the Bene Gesserit Private Reports, Folio 800881. And it kind of, first of all, made me wonder, why are they using folios in this universe? With the technology that we're seeing, it's a particular thing for printing, isn't it? It's whenever we fold paper, most of us, if we're not too sure what a folio is, Shakespeare, some of Shakespeare's works are under their first and second folio. So if you had a page and you were going to print with it, a folio is literally where you fold the page, like so. And a folio would be printed like such, so you would have one page would actually give you 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, and then you have quattros as well, which is where you do it again, and then you can cut that or tie that with your stitching, and that's height. So that's what it refers to. It's a thing to do with paper binding. Let's have a wee look at it. So Fremen speeches imply great concision in a precise sense of expression. I think it's a very unwieldy statement. So let's have a look how they talk, basically, their speeches. Immersed in the illusion of absolutes. Okay. Its assumptions are a fertile ground for absolutist religions. Furthermore, Fremen are fond of moralizing. So we've got absolutes and moralizing within their speech. They confront the terrifying instability of all things, that would be life, with with institutionalized statements. So maxims, sententiae, this kind of thing. They say, we know there is no summa of all attainable knowledge. There's no big book that tells us everything. That's the preserve of God, but whatever man can learn, man can contain. In other words, science, knowledge, books, etc., this kind of stuff. It's interesting that the use of the word summa there. In a couple of we're also going to talk about the word vines has been dropped in the previous chapter as well, coming up. Where do we get? Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it. We had a reference in a previous epigraph in relation to religion, that they should go, and as to religions, I recommend a rereading of Thomas Aquinas, and of course his Summa Theologica was the book that we thought that they were referencing there. So we know there's no summa of all attainable knowledge. That is the preserve of God, but whatever man can learn, man can contain. Out of this knife-edged approach to the universe, they carve a fantastical belief in signs and omens, right, and in their own destiny. This is the origin of their Kralizec legend, the war at the end of the universe. So, from their oral tradition, if you want, how they construct their speech, how they talk, how they use absolutes, and the fact that they moralize, has created a people who are very into their signs and omens and the sense of their own destiny, their own self-worth. Absolutes, then the universe must have an end, it must have a beginning, this kind of thing. Moralizing, there's going to be a war, they'll be on the good side, no doubt. Signs, omens, portents, this kind of thing is where this legend comes from. This is a Bene Gesserit private report on Kralizec. Now I've written next to this, Kralizec is a Fremen legend, and from what I get, what's important about this is not Bene Gesserit. This is not a Bene Gesserit myth. This is not a Bene Gesserit legend. This is a thing that's formed out of their own society of itself. And I'm assuming from all of the other things that make up the Fremen, that there's Zen, Sunni, the various different religions, etc., that make up who they are. But this is where and this is a report by the Bene Gesserit into this, because they're probably very curious about it. Myths and legends are their business. And here we've got a powerful end of the universe type thing here. And, again, things like this are scary to some people. Armageddon, I know people who are cracked up about it, this kind of thing. Absolutely cacking themselves over the day of judgment, this kind of thing. It's not a Bene Gesserit myth, therefore it's not a part of the Missionaria Protectiva, or any of that aspect of the Bene Gesserit application of myth and legend to their own use, if you like. Let's back up. My text as a problem in my book. Then, right? Thank you very much. Let's see. So Cynthia said my text says Fremen speech implies. Fremen speeches implies is what I've got. Yeah. Thank you. I'll fix that. No, I went with implied, didn't I? So it's Fremen speech implies great concession. That makes sense. It's a terrible, terrible sentence to have a mistake in, isn't it, in printing? Speeches. It should be speech. Focus. Come on, camera. Focus. Speeches. No, it's not going to, is it? That's not to worry, folks. I have speeches. Thank you. That makes more sense. I have Fremen speech, says Bojack. Hi all. Hi Julian. How you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you're keeping well. Good to see you. Speech in the singular, non spaces. Fantastic belief. Signs not fantastical. Right. Let's see. Goodness. Fantastic. Where are we? Got that one. There we are. Fantastic. You've got fantastic belief in signs, not fantastic. I've got fantastic too. I just read it wrong. That's fantastic. It's good. Yeah, but I've got Fremen speeches implied. It's that's a bad place to have a mistake, isn't it? Dear, oh dear, thank you. And yes, I've got fantastic beliefs too. I probably just misread it, Chaya. Out of this knife-edged approach to the universe, they carve a fantastic belief in signs and omens and in their own destiny. This is an origin of their Kralizec legend, the war at the end of the universe. What it's making me wonder, folks, is this why Leto has picked this legend? Why not tell everyone, I have seen it, Armageddon's coming, or I've seen it, Ragnarok will come. Something that's kind of reasonably well known. This is a small group, a small subculture, if you like, of the Fremen. It's a very specific legend to them. But I'm wondering, we've got a Bene Gesserit report on it here. Why this myth? And is it because it's not a Bene Gesserit one? It's not known to the Bene Gesserit. Is it that why he chooses it? I think it's a much more interesting epigraph than the previous one. I didn't have too much bother with this one. But it gives us a sense of their character as well. And this, by the way, is about Fremen speech. It's not specifically about, although the myth. Here, maybe have I misinterpreted that? Let me think. This is about Fremen in general, isn't it? Is the origin of their Kralizec legend, the war at the end of the universe. But it's a Shuloch, and specifically though, isn't it? Let me just see if I can back up a wee bit. Typhus is word from the furthermost Fremen legends. No, I'm misinterpreting that. Sorry, folks. It's not just Shuloch, I suppose, as much as the Fremen talk about them. It's Fremen in general we're talking about here. This is the Fremen overall. Sorry. I have misinterpreted that. I was thinking very much that we were specific to Shuloch here, but our epigraphs and our little discussion in the previous chapter, this is the Fremen in general. So it's a Fremen story, and therefore, again, one that's not been seeded by the Bene Gesserit. So we're back to Jacurutu here. Namri, this is Namri. They have him securely in a safe place, Namri said, smiling across the square stone room at Gurney Halleck. You may report this to your friends. In other words, permission. So right off the bat here, there's a power shift. And it's very noticeable in the language. And I've got several wee uh-ohs, etc. in this, I think. Where is this safe place? Halleck asked. He didn't like Namri's tone, felt constrained by Jessica's orders. Damn the witch. Her explanations made no sense except the warning about what could happen if Leto failed to master his terrible memories. Now, I just wanted to say off the bat here, I'll not go nuts with it here because it happens a lot. We've got action, speech, all of that kind of thing. We do actually have Gurney's thoughts in this chapter. An example of that there is just damn the witch. That's I think we've got a bit of a problem within this chapter. Frank does this a fair bit. Generally, thoughts are presented in italics in the text, and I think sometimes he forgets to do that. It's problematic whenever we clearly get a thought that's within the character, and we're getting their thoughts, and then we get a shift back to the third person omniscient narrator. So it's a little bit confusing, and again, it's an editorial problem within this book. I think that there's a lot of it happens not just with here, but with quite a lot of characters. And if you do pay attention, you'll see that generally you do get characters' thoughts. Like we've got distrans coming up. That it's in italics. But it's not consistent. I suppose that's my problem with it. In fact, it's very, very inconsistent, you know. Pardon me. Right. Doesn't like Namri's tone. He's feeling constrained by Jessica's orders. He's not a happy bunny. Her explanations make no sense, except for the warning about Leto. It's a safe place, Namri said. That's all I'm permitted to tell you. That's not an answer. I've written next to that. How do you know this? This is great. I've had a distrans. Sabiha is with him. Sabiha? She'll just tell him, not this time. Are you going to kill him? That's no longer up to me. And I put also, this is, so it felt constrained by Jessica's orders, and this no longer up to me. I'm not telling you where she is. We've got a real power shift here. And the Fremen in this case of the cast out are acting, I suppose, in a way that they maybe don't really realize where I think Gurney's loyalties lie. Halleck grimaced. Distrans. What was the range of those damn cave bats? He'd often seen them. So, to me, that bit there, for example, distrans is in italics. What was the range of those damned cave bats? That's his thoughts too. It should also be in italics, and then we shift into the third person omniscient narrator immediately after that. He'd often seen them flitting across the desert. If you see, I mean, that's an example of where this isn't going very well within this chapter. It happens quite a lot in the book. Well, I just wanted to point it out. So what was the range of those damn cave bats? He'd often seen them flitting across the desert with hidden messages imprinted upon their squeaking calls. But how far would they go on this hellhole planet? So he's trying to get an idea on how would we put it, a circumference, if you like, a perimeter for how far Leto could have gone away from here. The only other thing I thought that was a bit odd here is distrans, these cave bats. Wonder how far they can go. And I've written next to this, shouldn't he know? Or wouldn't he know? Especially everything that he's gotten up to on Arrakis. I find it odd that it's a bit of information that Gurney doesn't know. So I must see him for myself, he says here. That's not permitted. And I wrote next to this, uh-oh. These are what uh-ohs out. When I put uh-ohs into the book, I expect violence in the chapter. So it's me kind of going, I'm getting a sense of violence is coming. I'm usually not wrong. Halleck took a deep breath to quiet himself. He had spent 2 days and 2 nights waiting for search reports. Now it was another morning, and he felt his role dissolving around him, leaving him naked. He had never liked command anyway. Commands always waited while others did the interesting and dangerous things. Commands always waited. Again, I wonder, is that a problem in the text there? Leaving him naked, he had never liked command anyway, that's fine. Commands always waited while others did the interesting and dangerous things. I've got commands. Doesn't seem right. Commands always waited. Command always waited while others. Well, another weird plural. My text says command always waited while others did. Yeah, I've got a superfluous S here. Where did you go? Commands. Yeah, I've got commands. Doesn't make sense. Where are you? Number 7. There you go. Yeah, that's command. You're a mistake. Command in the singular. Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, Cynthia. My text says command always good while others did the interesting, dangerous things. That's it. Command in the singular mind. Yeah. It's all just, funny enough, when we think about what Chai was saying about how things happen to texts, whether it be translation, censorship, what we've got here is an exceptionally poorly edited set of books that have somehow been added to and detracted from. They've had words and things added to them, and there's whole the whole sentence is missing. It's nutty thing. Oh dear. Right now, thank you very much, folks. Well done. Yeah, they kind of howl at you whenever you see them, don't they? So we had that's not permitted. So he doesn't like dishing the orders. Basically, Gurney just be rather the guy out doing the fighting. So that's not permitted. And that tells us, by the way, as much as 2 days and 2 nights waiting for search reports. Now it was another morning. We're into the 3rd day since Leto's gone away. Command always waited while others did the interesting and dangerous things. Gives you a wee bit of insight into Gurney. Why isn't it permitted, he asked. The smugglers who arranged this safe siege had left too many questions unanswered, and he wanted no more of the same from Namri. I've written next this, read menacingly. Some believe you saw too much when you saw this siege, Namri said. I've written next, that's a threat, isn't it? Halleck heard the menace, relaxed into the easy stance of the trained fighter, hand near but not on his knife. He longed for a shield, but that had been ruled out by its effect on the worms, its short life in the presence of storm-generated static charges. I was wondering, is that a new feature that we've just learned there? A new fact about the storms is that they have a short life in storm-generated static charges. So, yeah, and I've written down shields are shorted out by static. That's a thing that we didn't know about them before. I'm pretty sure. I may be wrong. I always thought the thing was that nobody uses them on Arrakis because it drives the worms nuts. They go into a frenzy and come from all over the place just to go nuts on a shield. Right. This secrecy isn't part of our agreement, Halleck said. It's always a bad thing in books and movies, isn't it, when we've changed the agreement. or especially if someone goes, "I will pay you what you deserve." That means you're getting killed. It's not you're getting paid. The cliches, aren't they? So this secret isn't part of our agreement. Halleck said, "If I'd killed him, would that have been part of our agreement?" And I've written next to that, technically yes, but conditionally. Again, Halleck felt the jockeying of unseen forces about which the Lady Jessica had warned him. I like this paragraph, by the way. Let's get on with it. Um, this damn plan of hers. Maybe it was right not to trust Bene Gesserit. I've written it is. It's correct. Immediately he felt disloyal. She'd explained the problem, and he'd come into her plan with the expectation that it, like all plans, would need adjustment later. No plan was it survives meeting the enemy, isn't that right? This is the bit I like. This wasn't any Bene Gesserit. This was Jessica of the Atreides, who'd never been other than friend and supporter to him. Without her, he knew he'd have been adrift in a universe more dangerous than the one he now inhabited. It's a big up of Jessica there, isn't it? This isn't just any Bene Gesserit. This is Jessica of the Atreides. It's a very interesting point just to have that in this chapter. And again, Halleck previously had doubted her way back in Dune and nearly killed her. And I'd say probably that incident has absolutely solidified his loyalty to her, but she isn't any Bene Gesserit. And this is Halleck's assessment. I've got a couple of things to say about it, I suppose. Dear, oh dear. Yeah, and that any is in italics. This wasn't any Bene Gesserit. This is no just normal. This is a very specific thing. This is a very dangerous woman, a very intelligent woman. And I've asked a question about his attitude towards her here. I've asked a bunch of questions. Is he imprinted, first of all? Is he in love with her? Are they a couple? Because there are rumors, aren't there? Or is this genuine loyalty, love, and devotion, even with an awards and all way? Because it's damn her, you know, that woman, this kind of thing. He's damn the witch. It's not sycophantic, is it? And then just one other thing that without her, the phrasing of it here, he knew he'd been adrift in a universe. And the language of it kind of reminded me on samurai, a samurai who's lost his household, has no possession, and becomes a ronin. And the term ronin, as far as I know, means adrift on the waves. It kind of reminded me of that, and gave me that sense of that. I suppose that sense of being a bit like a ronin to Gurney's character, which I think is kind of played out nicely in this chapter. But the things are not going well for Namri here already, in my opinion. His attitude, his language, and it's going to get much worse. You can't answer my question, Namri said. In other words, if I'd killed him, would you have been? That's part of our agreement. That was fine with it. You were to kill him only if he showed himself to be possessed, Halleck said. Abomination. Namri put his fist beside his right ear. Your lady knew we had tests for such. Wise of her to leave that judgment in my hands. So that's condescending and it's provocative. Every time there's a provocation here, I've written it down in red next to it. Provoke. Halleck compressed his lips in frustration. You heard the Reverend Mother's words to me, Namri said. We Fremen understand such women, but you off-worlders never understand them. Fremen women often send their sons to death. Again, so you don't understand women, you off-world scum, basically is what he's saying. We do. We're amazing with women, aren't we? And our women send their children to their death. So I've written underneath that, contempt for off-worlders and Fremen mothers are shits. They're not good mothers and should have their kids taken from them. It is not a good thing for a mother to send her child to her death. Not at all. Halleck spoke past stiff lips. Are you telling me you've killed him? He lives. He is in a safe place. He'll continue to receive the spice. Safe place again. That's all you're getting. It's a safe place. Safe place. That's all I get. He's not telling him anything. Well, he's given. Well, actually, sorry, he's not telling. He is giving away information, and I think this is why he lives as long as he does in this chapter. Namri's a mouth. Is what I would call an absolute mouth. It's just, no, let me tell you everything. So it's just he's safe, but we're giving him the spice. That's important. But I'm to escort him back to his grandmother if he survives, Halleck said. Namri merely shrugged. In other words, not my problem. I don't care. Who gives a... and I've written next to that provocation again, and I've written next to uh-oh. Because it seems that that they're presented as that there is no contingency for the boy surviving, and that they're just going with the other way, and that's not part of the deal. Halleck understood that that was all the answer he'd get. Damn. He couldn't go back to Jessica with such unanswered questions. He shook his head, and I've written uh-oh next to it. This is Namri. Why question what you cannot change? Namri asked. You're being well paid. And I've written next to that in honor of Frank Herbert, uh-oh, with 3 exclamation marks. I went Bangaria. Provoke. Halleck scowled at the man. I'll show you something in a wee second. I've actually written at the point where I think that that's it. There's a point of no return here, a Rubicon, if you like, crossing the Rubicon. You're being well paid. But this is insulting. Halleck scowled at the man. Fremen. So we're seeing a bit of prejudice go back and forth here. They believed all foreigners were influenced primarily by money. They wouldn't be too far wrong, though, would they? But Namri was speaking more than Fremen prejudice. Other forces were at work here, and that was obvious to one who'd been trained in observations by a Bene Gesserit. I'm getting barked at. This whole thing had the smell of a feint within a feint within a feint. Right, this bit is where I've put a wee asterisk here with a wee note, but this is shifting to the insultingly familiar form. Halleck said, the Lady Jessica will be wrathful. She could send cohorts against, and he's cut off. Now, at that point where he switches to the insultingly familiar form, he's provoking back. I've written next that he's going to kill him from this point on. And I mean, Halleck is going to kill Namri. We're going to find out that that's what Namri's up to anyway here, I suppose. So Lady Jessica will be wrathful. She could send cohorts against Zanadik, Namri cursed. You office messenger! You stand outside the Mohalata. I take pleasure in possessing your water for the noble house. Sorry, for the noble people. I'll read that again. That was fun. Zanadik, Namri cursed. You office messenger! You stand outside the Mohalata. I take pleasure in possessing your water for the noble people. And I've written next that the first bit of that there is, I thought it was you office messenger. I thought it was Python-esque. I've also written next this all sounds a bit unhinged. Is this the provocation from Gurney? Let's see, we've got a bit of language here. Zanadik, right, comes from Zandik. Zandik is the plural, which is basically a heretic. It's an Islamic pejorative, a slur for any person who holds views or practices contrary to Islamic dogma, from the Middle Persian Zandik, which is an interpreter. But there you go, basically a heretic. Mohalata. Right. That's an interesting one. I'm not too sure about that. Hindi. Oh yeah, no, I've got it. Right, Hindi. It's a herb used for charms and magic. I've got this from a text called the Agni Purana. In Sanskrit, moha, if we split up, as delusion, confusion, ignorance. In English, the word means unaccountable. That's moha. In Latin and Sanskrit is a vine or a creeper. In Spanish, it's something that causes disgust or something that's rotten. In Latin, it comes from latus, which means to be born, carried, suffered, or endured. Now, I also found that within Hindi we have malat, which is an extension of time or deadline, which is something that somebody else has suggested. I have got the meaning for it though. Now, Mohalata is from the Kannada language, which is a Dravidian language spoken mainly in the state of Karnataka in southwest India. It's got 44 million speakers. Say hello to anybody out there from who's watching. So it is a kind of creeper supposed to have the power of attracting or bringing a person under a spell. You stand outside the Mohalata, you stand outside the place that's supposed to have the power of attracting or bringing people under a spell, under a glamour, this kind of thing. A Mahalata is a unit of time, and Mahilata, by the way, is a terrestrial worm that burrows into and helps aerate soil used as bait by anglers. In other words, an earthworm in the Kannada language. That was fun having a look at their dictionary. Their writing is exquisitely beautiful. Mm. So, you office messenger, you, you filth. It just reminded me on your father was a hamster and your mother smelled of elderberries, this kind of thing. Your mother's a hamster. You get me, this kind of python, office messenger. Terrible insult. So, Xanatic, you heretic, basically, you office messenger, you piece of sputum, you scum, you stand outside the Mohalada. I think it's a place that is, and also with the description of the vines from the previous chapter, it's a word that having meaning with vines, kind of creepers that has the power of attracting, bringing people under a spell. And because of that, I take pleasure in possessing your water for the noble people. So that's a threat of murder, by the way, as well. So there we go. That's the wee bit of etymology on that. I don't know what you think, folks. That's I think that the Mohalat of the Canadian word there, kind of creeper, supposed to have power of attracting or bringing a person under a spell. It sounds like something out of a kind of Hyperborean kind of Cthulhu type story, doesn't it? But just in the sense that we had creepers in the previous chapter on that structure that was the that Shuloch, the tent. China saying Jessica is more than Bene Gesserit. She's also a Fremen Reverend mother to the Fremen god. I thought Gurney and Jessica were a couple of some sort at this point, not like with Leto the First, but lovers. Yeah, I got the sense that they were a couple. That's what I was asking. I was kind of wondering. Was because he certainly doesn't present a perfect picture, or he has it's or which that damn her, but his sense of disloyalty there, just at the thought of not trusting Bene Gesserit, and it's not. This isn't any Bene Gesserit. It's Jessica of the Atreides, friend and supporter to him. More, without her, he knew he'd been adrift. There is, yeah, I get the sense that they are lovers. I'd agree with you, Chaya. Yeah. So they're saying, interesting that Jessica allowed Namri to run the test for possession. Was she unaware of Jacurutu's complexities? Javid, for instance, or any links to Shuloch? I think, I don't know. That's a good question, especially in light of what we've been told about contingency plans with Jessica in this chapter, and the fact that this chapter begins with a Bene Gesserit private reports. Bene Gesserit private reports, folio 8008881. Stroke folio, yeah. So that's a very, very good question. Is she aware? Who knows? I think that she simply, I, I get the sense that she simply planned for things going badly wrong, and that there's a range of contingencies kind of covering all sorts of things. I think that's what I get. But yeah, it's obviously that they've been betrayed here, and in the sense that also that their plan's been subverted as well. Hmm. But yeah, where are we? Again, the office messenger bit just struck me as a little bit Python-esque. As I said, he sounds a bit unhinged here. This guy, there's something more to this. And Halleck picks up on this. This is more than just Fremen prejudice. Something else is going on here. What's up with this guy? And he's kind of basically, I take pleasure in possessing your water for the noble people. Lots and lots of exclamation marks there. Pardon me. Halleck raised a hand on his knife, readied his left sleeve where he prepared a small surprise for attackers. I see no water spilled here, he said. Perhaps you're blinded by your pride. That's another provocation. As much as it sounds like he's saying, "Oh, there's no need, no harm done, no need to fight." I think that's a feint. Um, as much as he's saying it, I don't think he means it at all. I think it's a delaying tactic here from Halleck. What I've written next to it is, very importantly as well, is keeping him talking, provoke him a wee bit here. But interestingly enough, we've talked about this. He's offering him a way out, and we've had a wee bit of a natter about this quality within traps within the Dune universe, and especially the Bene Tleilax face dancers, etc. Uh, I see no water spilled here. Perhaps you're blinded by your pride. There's no need for violence. Nobody's stabbed anyone yet, but maybe just your pride is blinding you, and that is insulting him, isn't it? But I said I don't believe it. I fully think that Halleck fully intends to kill this guy right now. Well, but he's keep talking. Let him monologue a bit before we do him in. You live because I wished you. Here we go. This is, oh God, it's so Bond villain, isn't it? You live because I wished you to learn before dying that your Lady Jessica will not send cohorts against anyone. You are not to be lured quietly into the Huawei off-world scum. I am of the noble people, and you. So he's interrupted here. And I'm just a servant of the Atreides, Halleck said, voice mild. With the scum who lifted the Harkonnen yoke from your smelly neck. You stink, you filth. This is going downhill badly, isn't it? I've got a little, there we go, action. Gurney Halleck versus Namri the cast out on the style up at the top here. And we got his teeth grimacing there. Namri showed white teeth in a grimace. White's a color of death when we see it in this books. Namri, this is him. So here we go. Your lady is a prisoner of Salusa Secundus. The notes you thought were from her. Oh, sorry. The notes you thought were from. Oh, here I've written this down wrong. Let me just reread this. The notes you thought were from her daughter. What about oh, the mess. Let's see. The notes you thought were from her came from her daughter. There we go. Missed that out. Let me just write that in. Oh, right. There we go. Ali is manipulating the plans. Alia's hand is at work here. We get a reveal, and I've written next to this a bit of evil. More. This guy is kind of evil monologuing, isn't he? I shall reveal all that you need to know. I also thought, the insults here, your smelly neck, this kind of thing. There's something a wee bit childish about it, but there is something a wee bit unhinged about Namri here. So your lady's a prisoner of Salusa Secundus. The notes you thought were from her came from her daughter. So Ali's manipulating things. By extreme effort, Halleck managed to keep his voice even, no matter. Alia will, this is where it all kicks off here. Action and treachery. So Namri drew his crysknife. What do you know of the Womb of Heaven? I am her servant, you male whore. I do her bidding when I take your water. And he lunged across the room with foolhardy directness. Halleck, not allowing himself to be tricked by such seeming clumsiness, flicked up the left arm of his robe, releasing the extra length of heavy fabric he'd sewn there, letting that take Namri's knife. In the same movement, Halleck swept the folds of cloth over Namri's head, came in under through the cloth with his own knife, aimed directly for the face. He felt the point of it bite home as Namri's body hit him with the hard surface of metal armor beneath the robe. The Fremen emitted one outraged squeal, jerked backward, and fell. He lay there, blood gushing from his mouth, as his eyes glared at Halleck, then slowly dulled. And as always, there we go. He gets his little skull. Where are we? Namri. There we are. Killed by Gurney Halleck. Action treachery. Womb of Heaven that we heard here is the first time that we've heard it mentioned. We'll hear it 5 times in the book as a title for Alia. And what do you know of the Womb of Heaven? It's very possessive, isn't it? I am her servant, you male whore. I do her bidding when I take your water. In other words, she's told me to kill you. So we've got a lot of reveal from Namri before he's finally killed. First that Leto is safe, that they're feeding him. He's received word by Distrans that they're feeding him spice, that Sabiha is with him. That we get a really good sense of what they think of foreigners, etc., like this off-worlders. Lady Jessica supposedly a prisoner on Suicide Secundus, and the information that Gurney thought he was getting from her has actually been coming from Alia. And he's not a happy bunny, is he, Gurney? But he's killed this guy. And as I said, I think he's been delaying killing him. It's just that he's been spilling his guts here too much. At the same time, Namri's not allowing himself to be. Namri's very obvious, isn't he? And yeah, the idea of having heavy metal armor underneath a robe and trying to conceal it, the fact that it wouldn't make noise, all of these kind of things, is kind of interesting. But it makes Namri seem very inept. For a person who's been doing this kind of stuff as a judge, he doesn't seem to have much sense, does he? Here, and it's something, snapped him as a deliberate attempt to, and we just decided that we think some think you've seen too much, this kind of thing. Not part of the deal. We've got a lot of those kind of cliches here, don't we? They've changed the deal, and he's it's a real sudden shift in Namri, isn't it? It just, not that we've got a sense of the threat from him before, that he's a dangerous so-and-so. He's a bit of it, but we really got the sense that he's a complete nut job here, I thought. You live because I wish to learn before dying that your Lady Jessica will not send cohorts against them. You're not to be lured quietly into the Huangwei. We've had this word before as well. That's the Hawaiian word, the road, the highway, the path, if you like, of death. Off-world scum. I love it when we get a bit of swearing going on in these books, and it's all very mild, isn't it? But it's good fun to read. So, action and treachery. Namri is dead. He's titty bread, as we would say in this country. He is potato bread. He's dead. And it's a vicious. It's a very quick, swift little. Whoa, there you go. And it built up pretty quick. And I have to say, Namri's evil, I think, was kind of obvious, but the provocation between both characters was very obvious, very well written, I think. I said I've put lots of little, every time it's happened, I've put little uh-ohs, and the last one I've just got 3 big exclamation marks on. I figured this guy's dead very quickly. He's dead within a page of me putting those exclamation marks down. So that's the end of Namri. Halleck blew air through his lips. How could that fool Namri have expected anyone to miss the presence of armor beneath a robe? Halleck addressed the corpse as he recovered the trick sleeve, wiped his knife, and sheathed it. How did you think we Atreides servants were trained? Fool. He took a deep breath, thinking, well now, whose fiend am I? And it's a good thought, isn't it? There'd been a ring of truth in Namri's words. Jessica, a prisoner of the Carinos, and Alia's working her own devious schemes. Jessica herself had warned of many contingencies with Alia as enemy, but had not predicted herself as prisoner. He had his orders to obey, though, which are first, though. So first, there was the necessity of getting away from this place. Luckily, one robed Fremen looked much like another. He rolled Namri's body into a corner, threw cushions over it, moved a rug to cover the blood. When it was done, Halleck adjusted the nose and mouth tubes of his stillsuit, brought up the mask as one would in preparing for the desert, pulled the hood of his robe forward, and went out into the long passage. And we get his thoughts here. The innocent move without care. Absolutely. He thought he thought setting his pace at an easy saunter. He felt curiously free, as though he'd moved out of danger, not into it. Saunter's an interesting word in Northern Ireland. I've got a wee treat for you if you want. Let me see. We got a local song. Saunter's a very, I think that people would say a lot up in Derry city of Derry, London Derry, whatever you want to call it, Derry Air. Of course, the Saunter is a nice casual wee walk. But if anybody's interested, here's a local band with their song Saunter, and I defy any of you to see if you can understand a word they say. There you go. That's it. It's not if you want to get an idea of what Derry City's like. Never mind Derry girls. Have a look at that. Dear, oh dear. Not safe for work. I think it's just a pop video. It's a Derry City word. Saunter. Saunter is how you would say it. My God. The innocent move without care is very, very true. If you're up to something, whatever, blah blah blah, and you're worried about, walk like you own the place, act like you're doing nothing wrong, and you'll be fine. Let's see. So the innocent move without care, he thought, setting his pace at an easy saunter. Sorry, it's just a particular word I've written here. Inform the audience, it'll be fun. He felt curiously free, as though he'd moved out of danger, not into it. He's been liberated. And I think having to kind of take this role with Namri, it is like a command position, the way his thinking was earlier. And I think Gurney's he's got his orders. He's a ground soldier. He's a fighting man, isn't he? And he's just done a bit of fighting. I think this is much better. He feels more comfortable like this. And even though he has moved out of danger here, not into it, it technically is moving into danger, isn't he? We get his thoughts here. I never did like her plan for the boy. He thought that's as much as I was writing down imprinted, is he in love with the couple? That's the one thing that told me they're not imprinted. I think that he's not imprinted. He doesn't necessarily agree with her half the time. I think he thought, and I'll tell her so if I see her. If not afraid of speaking his mind to Jessica, because if Namri spoke the truth, the most dangerous alternative plan went into effect. So they have contingencies. And it's interesting that contingencies, if you think about them in terms of threads or possible futures for possible events, if this goes wrong, do this, but if that doesn't happen, don't worry about it. This kind of thing. Alia wouldn't let him live long if she caught him, but there was always Stilgar, a good Fremen with a good Fremen's superstitions. I've written next to that, what does that mean? And is he Bene Gesserit trained? I was wondering about Stilgar, but also that Gurney is Bene Gesserit trained. And I've written good Fremen superstitions as opposed to Namri and bad Fremen, and bad Fremen superstitions. Jessica had explained it. There's a very thin layer of civilized behavior over Stilgar's original nature. And here's how you take that layer off him. In other words, this is what Jessica has told him. We're kept it secret. We're building the tension. We must read on to find out. Will we even find out? But this is how to manipulate Stilgar into violence. In other words, I think here, how to turn Stilgar back from being the civilized man of statecraft that he is into a one-man killing machine again. Manipulation, people as tools. And we have the end of Namri. And off Gurney goes. And yeah, isn't it great? What a great chapter. Deadly intrigue. And Namri's a bit of a... I don't know what you think of Namri. I thought his villainy was a wee bit overstated, if you see what I mean. It was a wee bit hammy. And it was almost as much as you get this sense about him, he's a dangerous guy. He's not quite. It's a very sudden kind of madness, isn't it? It's just, and it's possibly he's in a really foul mood because of what's happened to Sabiha. She is only his niece. After all, she's not his daughter or anything like that. But by goodness, is he off him on you, Zanadik, you heretic, you office messenger. You scum, you off what really has just gone nuts, isn't it? It's full of hate speech, if you like. He's winding himself up, getting possibly ready for the moment, and ends up getting himself killed quite badly here. Doesn't strike me as a smart fighter, as throughout this chapter, as smart at anything. And what is Namri's relation to the Womb of Heaven as her servant, and that Gurney's a man whore? What do you know of her? What does that suggest? But there we go, folks. Another chapter done. Two great chapters, I thought. One very much more on the intrigue building, and this one pushing the intrigue as well. Seeing some of our threads come together, oddly enough, we're usually talking about this kind of thing, and a real piece of action. Vicious. That's goodbye, Namri. And again, our Gurney Halleck here, both him and Jessica have been a little bit ambiguous here. He's kind of stepping back. Remember, always Paul Atreides was a hero amongst heroes. Gurney's a hero too. And yeah, I think we're getting our heroes back here. Here's Gurney being a bit heroic and hopefully off on his way to do some good stuff, But two excellent chapters, folks. I really enjoyed them. I'll catch up with your comments here. Let's see. Where do we get to? Oh, goodness, way back here. Right, let's see. Killing Gurney seems as a child. Where do we get to? Right, killing Gurney seems the plan of Namri and Alia. Namri was much angrier with Leto earlier, yet no violence. Gurney didn't provoke him hardly at all. Yeah, but there's one point where I think, no, he's not provoked, but then I think he just goes for it. And it's not that bad, really, isn't it? But we're not told what the provocation is. Try it, but the way Frank says it is, it's just shifting to the insultingly familiar form. So we're not really told that, but whereas I think Namri's insults are kind of obvious, but that's the bit there I thought where no, he is insulting him, but Frank doesn't tell us. I mean, I think Frank does like to keep his language a wee bit clean, Just said, does Gurney know of Javid? If so, he should have suspected Alia's involvement in feints. We don't quite know what all the different contingencies that he's been primed on about. A little bit of mystery, isn't it, at the minute? But yeah, again, there's a few things within these couple of chapters that shouldn't that person know that, should that kind of thing. Yeah, be aware just in case that, I would have thought that there would have been some sort of secret little thing to make sure that this message is from me and not Ali or something, some little Cynthia said Chaya agreed regarding Namri's plans. I don't know if Gurney knows about Java. I don't either at this point, I think. Though it seems like the kind of thing he or Jessica should have investigated given their suspicions of Alia's activities. Yeah. At this point, as Carlos is saying, at this point, would Gurney even see himself as having an identity apart from the Atreides? Possibly, but I think if he's been on House, if he's been with Jessica on Caladan, he's been back at the home of House Atreides, hasn't he? Having apart from, I don't think so. I think as much as he's Gurney Halleck, I think he's an Atreides man. I think he would see himself that way, as you say, Carlos. Julian said, I thought Namri didn't believe in the Atreides as gods. I'm unsure as to his more intimate motives. Yeah, it's almost a suggestion that is there some sort of sexual relationship between Alia and Namri? This kind of thing. What has she done to buy his loyalty? It's, it's just the language calling him a male whore. Man whore, I think, is much better than male whore. But yeah, what do you know of the Womb of Heaven? Well, this is Gurney Halleck. I think he knows a bit about her. But of the Womb of Heaven, who are we talking about? But is her daughter, it's Alia. It's mentioned. I am her servant, you male whore. I do her bidding when I take your water. Why? Yeah, we've got superstition at work. We've got signs, omens, all sorts of things. Some good points and good questions, folks. Yeah, I'm unsure as to more intimate motives. Same. That's the wee link there for me is for that song Saunter for a bit of fun if anybody wants to check it out at some point. China said, I think he sees himself as still part of the Atreides cohort, but inferior because he was never as spice affected. I think he's still in all of the Bene Gesserit and prescient side of the Atreides as an outsider. Bojack said maybe Jessica allowed Namri to do the test because she knew if things went wrong, Gurney could take him. Laughing, yes, it's why would you send such a deadly man as Gurney? Gurney's there for a reason, and is he a feint? As the point is, and that Jessica surely knows that Gurney can handle these guys. Otherwise, she wouldn't send them. She'd send more, wouldn't she? If Gurney wasn't able to deal with this, she'd send someone or something that could. Just yeah, I got that. Bojack said Gurney took him out so easy. Yeah, it kind of. Whenever you get something like this, and the Fremen are meant to be such deadly fighters, we have had a bit of a generational shift, etc. But have they become that soft? But yeah, it's just whoops, no bother at all to Gurney. Julian said, Children has some of the last knife fighting we see. Children also has lots of Fremen culture in its final death throes. And again, we've even got a sort of variation of it here. And the interesting thing is that with Namri and as Julian said, culture in its final death throes, with Namri and Muriz, we kind of have. It seems that Fremen who are kind of chasing imperial dreams, but that's part of what the corruption I think that's been done to the Fremen. Cynthia says many liminal situations here. Outcast, servant versus self, drug test, and finally, a Bene Gesserit means to decivilize Stilgar. We all have a veneer of civilization, in my honest opinion. I always used to say the joke that I used to make was that civilization was the ultimate barbarity. Something, yeah. It doesn't take much, does it, to take it off? I don't know. It depends on what you mean by civilized. Civilized, uncivilized. It's an interesting word. It's a bit like the word humane. And what do we mean by the hell by that? And inhumane. I often think are very interesting words, But yes, indeed, many of them. And as you say, many little situations here. We're on the brink of heading down towards this last bit of action. Let me just see here. Our next chapter is going to be a single chapter. Yes, indeed. Is this the one? Hang on. Kissing the Sietch's word. Yeah, it's the next one, folks. So, he has the soundtrack on his hand here, I think. So, let's thread that through. Yes, indeed. Next chapter is going to be just 52 on its own. It's long enough to deal with it. Pardon me, and it looks like that's where we're starting to get the. Oh goodness, hang on. There's a 1, 2. Double them up with the next couple. So we will move pretty quickly towards the end of the book. The next chapter then is kind of where I said I would drop this stuff, isn't it? Really, we wanted to wait till we start getting that action of Second Skin. So I'll certainly prepare that then. So for the next book club, we'll have that chapter 52. We'll see about adding in, or else doing a separate thing in the week. We'll create a separate. No, we'll do a separate program over the next week or so, where we're going to talk about all those things: the Moapo of Leto Atreides, the ritual. This is in particular Raglan's work, and just especially how they apply to this book. And we'll try and read you a fair amount of some of this stuff, and we should be able to read you the entire paper of the Moapo of Leto Atreides by Marie Noelle Zinder, which is going to kind of explore the psychological thinking behind this and the ideas of French psychoanalyst DBA Anzu in relation to what's going to happen to Leto. So it's one of those things just to be a bit of fun, if anybody doesn't mind this kind of thing, and hopefully sometimes this stuff can be a wee bit hard to get to, give you a little bit of insight into what Frank is actually doing with the character, That's interesting, and we're heading there. We're soon be done, folks. It's getting good. I really enjoyed these 2 chapters. Fun picking up some new terms, some concepts that we're trying to figure out the words, etc. But etc. But we've got our Kralizec on the board very much so, and we get a sense of where that comes from. It's a very specifically a Fremen local myth that is outside the purview of the Bene Gesserit. And the epigraph alone here tells us that it looks like they're studying it anyway. Moapo is a great paper. It is. It's a really, I look forward to it. If you, a lot of you, I'm sure, maybe are not aware of it. I've got a copy of it here, so we'll just read you the whole thing pretty much and have an natter about it. But as Julian says, it is a really good paper, I missed a comment from Chaya there. Sorry, Chaya says, I think the Fremen Shuloch have more imperial aspirations than the Fremen in Jacurutu. Yeah, what's the worm thing? It's that little thing that he says. That kind of, is it right at the beginning when he says none of your worms are getting off? Get off the planet will survive. One day, it's almost as if he has a little dream. One day they will. Pardon me. Very scratchy throat today, folks. However, that wasn't too bad for 2 hours 15 minutes or so for those 2 chapters. Nice and short, really driving the action for it, really driving the intrigue for it, and setting up a little bit more mystery. All our pieces are arriving on the board at this point. A couple of them are being taken off as well. And a nice, an interesting little comment, as we pointed there, about Stilgar's original nature. A very thin layer of civilized behavior is over his original nature. What is his original nature? I mean, we've had comments recently just about the general nature of the Fremen. It's savage, this kind of thing, But there we go. Yes, indeed. Excellent stuff. Yeah. Well, dear. Well, listen, folks, thank you very much for your input. We've got a whole bunch of stuff coming for you very soon, and we'll be popping on a wee bit more, hopefully. But, it won't be long till we'll be finished. So as usual, we'll hopefully be going with next week Thursday at 10 p.m. if everything's correct and works okay. And we'll have to see about dropping in between the next chapter and the one after. We're gonna run with the Moapo. We're gonna have a wee chat about Rag. We're gonna do readings from his book as well, and kind of really give you the sense of what he's talking about with the ritual and the problems with it here. Because as much as there is a lot of the Joseph Campbell stuff, the core book, I think, for Herbert's understanding of myth and ritual is Lord Raglan's, which I think is a much. They're not great books in any sense of the word in terms of their honesty, but I think Raglan's is a much more interesting book than Campbell's. Horrifically systemic, I think. There you go. But there we go, folks. So I'll say goodnight. Everybody's saying goodnight there. So, I'm trying to saying good point, Cynthia. Bojack Hart saying take care. Thank you, Bojack. Take care of yourself. Cynthia saying thanks, Doc, and all. Thank you, Cynthia, as always. Julian, night, everyone. See you next time, Doc. See you soon, Julian. And thanks, Doc, and all. Good night. Yeah. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much, as always, for your help. Some really handy things there tonight that you have helped me with. As always, your input, your questions, your comments, great stuff. I look forward to seeing you all real soon. In the meantime, I'll say take care of yourselves, no matter where you're at. Be safe, look after yourselves, and I'll chat to you real soon. Take care. Good night. Bye bye. Ba 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 ba. Do 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 do.